Alexandra Whitmore was 30 years old when her phone rang late on a Thursday evening, and her father's voice broke in a way she had never heard before. Thomas Whitaker was crying, quietly, unevenly, like a man who did not know how to make room for grief in his body. Alexandra stood in her kitchen, the smell of garlic and olive oil rising from the pan, and listened without interrupting. She noticed small, strange details: the ticking clock on the wall, the steam fogging her window, the way her hand stayed steady around the phone. 2 years earlier, when she was 28, she had called her parents crying too. Before I continue, I need to ask you a quick favor. We're working toward our first 1,000 subscribers, and your support truly makes a difference. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. Like this video, and tell me where you're watching from. She had been shaking then, sitting on a hard plastic chair in a hospital hallway, holding a diagnosis that split her life in half. That night, her father had said only one sentence before ending the call. Now he needed her. Now his voice cracked as he said her name. Alexandra closed her eyes, not in anger, not even in pain, but in recognition. Some moments circle back with terrible precision. Before she could answer him, before she allowed herself to feel anything at all, she thought, this is where the story actually begins. 2 years earlier, Alexandra's life had been ordinary in the way that feels permanent until it isn't. She was a senior graphic designer at a mid-sized Boston agency, the kind with exposed brick walls, glass conference rooms, and an espresso machine that hummed like a small engine. She had earned that title through 5 years of late nights and quiet persistence, climbing from intern to senior without shortcuts or favors. Her apartment in Somerville was modest but hers, a one-bedroom with creaky floors and a single large window where a monstera plant leaned toward the light. She had routines she trusted: coffee at 6:30, the gym 3 mornings a week, Thursday dinners with friends. That Wednesday morning began like any other, until her phone vibrated with a number she didn't recognize. She almost ignored it. Deadlines did that to her. But something made her answer. The voice on the line was careful, professional, already braced. Ms. Whitmore, this is Dr. Patterson's office. We have your biopsy results. The doctor would like to see you tomorrow morning. Alexandra stared at her desk as the words settled. She knew enough to understand tone. Good news did not require urgency. The next morning, Dr. Patterson did not soften the truth. Stage 3 breast cancer. Aggressive. Immediate treatment. Alexandra listened as if the words belonged to another woman, someone older, someone reckless, someone else entirely. The office was spotless, neutral, designed to calm. It failed. When the doctor asked if she had someone to drive her home, Alexandra hesitated. Her closest friends were at work. Her coworkers were kind but distant. Without thinking, she said, "I'll call my dad." She believed in her father then, or maybe she believed in the idea of him, the steady man who had always seemed unmovable. Thomas Whitaker believed orders solved everything. He believed feelings were inconveniences. Still, when the world collapsed, Alexandra reached for him. Sitting on a hallway bench, her hands trembling, she told him the truth in plain words. "Dad, I have cancer. It's stage 3. I'm scared." The silence on the line stretched too long. When he finally spoke, his voice was clipped, distracted. "We can't deal with this right now," he said. "Your brother's wedding is coming up." Then he hung up. Alexandra stayed on that bench long after the call ended. People passed her, doctors, nurses, families moving in clusters, but no one stopped. That day marked the first of many things she would do alone. She drove herself to her first chemotherapy appointment weeks later, navigating traffic through nausea and fear. The infusion center was bright, efficient, almost cheerful. Patients sat in recliners with full lines running like quiet lifelines. Most had someone beside them, a spouse, a parent, a child. Alexandra did not. The nurse assigned to her, Jordan Pierce, noticed. Jordan wasn't assigned to her beyond that day. She simply chose to sit, to ask questions that weren't clinical. "You don't have to be brave here," Jordan said gently. Alexandra smiled because it felt expected, not because it was true. Over the next months, 6 rounds of chemotherapy blurred into hospital corridors, medication schedules, and exhaustion that sank into her bones. She never received a visit from her family. 36 hospital appointments passed with her name listed alone on every visitor log. She stopped expecting anything different. While Alexandra fought for her life, her family planned a wedding. Her younger brother Evan was getting married in October, and the event consumed every conversation back home. Her mother, Margaret, sent occasional texts, updates about flowers, menus, guest lists, often hours after Alexandra mentioned treatments or side effects. When medical bills arrived and insurance fell short, Alexandra asked her father for help. He suggested a personal loan. She took one, because survival leaves little room for pride. The wedding happened without her. She was not asked to attend. Her father said she didn't look well and might distract from the celebration. Alexandra watched none of it in real time. She saw a single photograph weeks later. Her parents smiling, her brother radiant, a caption calling it the happiest day of their lives. She closed the app and focused on breathing. That winter, after her 4th round of chemotherapy, she woke on her bathroom floor shaking, her hair scattered across the tiles. She called her mother at 2 a.m. The call went unanswered. Jordan arrived instead, still in scrubs, and stayed until morning. That was when Alexandra understood something quietly, without drama. Family, as she had known it, was not coming. And she would have to survive anyway. Recovery was not a single moment but a slow accumulation of tolerable days. Alexandra finished chemotherapy in early November, thinner, bald, and profoundly tired, but still standing. When Dr. Patterson finally said the words, "No evidence of disease," Alexandra didn't celebrate. She nodded, thanked her doctor, and walked out to the parking garage where she sat in her car and cried until her chest hurt. The relief arrived later, quietly, like a tide pulling back. She returned to work part-time first, then fully, discovering that surviving something lethal rearranged her priorities with brutal efficiency. Deadlines no longer terrified her. Meetings no longer intimidated her. Her boss, Michael Stanton, never asked her to explain herself. "Take the time you need," he said simply. "Your work speaks for you." Over the next year, the agency expanded, restructured, and Alexandra stepped into leadership without announcing it. She trained junior designers, made decisions quickly, trusted her instincts. Life began to feel usable again. She moved out of Somerville into a small Beacon Hill condo with a view of the river. She bought herself one indulgence, a navy cashmere scarf, because she wanted something soft that reminded her she had survived. Her family remained distant. Holiday texts came and went without substance. Alexandra stopped waiting for more. Jordan Pierce stayed. Not as a savior, not as a hero, but as someone who showed up consistently. They met for dinner every Thursday, sometimes talking, sometimes sitting in comfortable silence. Jordan never pushed Alexandra to reconcile with her family or forgive anything prematurely. "You get to decide what access people have to you," she said once, stirring her soup. Alexandra took that sentence seriously. She began dating cautiously, learning how to trust without oversharing, how to let people in without handing them control. Life grew fuller, steadier. 2 years passed. Alexandra remained cancer-free. She was promoted again, this time to creative director, a role that surprised even her. The speed of her rise wasn't accidental. The agency had grown, and Alexandra had grown sharper, calmer, more decisive. She no longer apologized for existing. She no longer explained her boundaries. By the time her father called again, she had built a life that did not require his approval. The phone lit up with his name on a quiet Thursday evening. Alexandra considered letting it ring. Instead, she answered. His voice sounded smaller than she remembered. "I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's," he said. "Early stage." He didn't ask how she was. He asked her to come to dinner. Alexandra agreed to the dinner not out of obligation, but clarity. She wanted to hear the request spoken out loud. She spent the days before it calm, observant, prepared. Jordan noticed. "They're going to ask something from you," she said. Alexandra nodded. "I know." The Whitaker house looked unchanged, all white trim and controlled elegance. Inside, the familiar choreography unfolded. Margaret hugged her too tightly. Evan smiled nervously. Claire sat quietly, one hand resting on her pregnant belly. Thomas Whitaker sat at the head of the table, his left hand trembling slightly against the cloth. After dinner, he spoke plainly. He needed help. Long-term care. Someone to move home. His eyes settled on Alexandra. "You don't have a family of your own," he said, as if stating a fact rather than assigning a role. Evan shifted, already relieved. Alexandra listened without interrupting. When they finished, she asked one question. "Do you know if I'm still in remission?" No one answered. She took a breath. "I had stage 3 cancer. I went through 6 months of chemotherapy. You never visited once.
She placed her phone on the table and showed them the records. Dates. Appointments.
No visitors.
The room fell silent. Margaret cried first.
Evan looked away. Claire stared at the table, then at Evan, something changing in her expression. Thomas tried to regain control. That was the past, he said. I'm sick now.
Alexandra shook her head. You were sick with fear.
I was sick with cancer. She reminded him of the day she called crying, of the sentence he had used to end the conversation.
He didn't deny it. He couldn't.
When he finally broke, when the tears came openly, Alexandra felt no satisfaction.
Only clarity. I'm scared, he said.
I need you. Alexandra stepped closer, her voice steady.
I understand fear, she said.
But I won't abandon myself to fix what you refuse to face. She repeated his words back to him exactly as he had said them years ago. I can't deal with this right now.
The sentence landed cleanly. She picked up her purse and walked out. No shouting. No drama.
Just the sound of the door closing behind her. The aftermath unfolded without her involvement.
Evan took leave from work. Tension filled the house. A caregiver was hired reluctantly.
Margaret called weeks later with updates Alexandra did not request. Alexandra listened politely, then ended the call.
She felt no guilt.
Her life continued. She kept her Thursday dinners with Jordan. She started seeing Daniel Foster, a high school history teacher who listened more than he spoke and never treated her resilience like a novelty. Alexandra remained cancer-free. She kept the old records stored away, not out of bitterness, but accuracy. When her mother sent an apology months later, quiet, direct, unqualified, Alexandra accepted it without reopening wounds. Forgiveness, she had learned, was not a performance. It was a choice, made slowly. Alexandra did not return home.
She did not rescue anyone.
She lived. And that, finally, was enough. Time did what Alexandra no longer tried to force. It settled things. Weeks passed, then months. Her father's condition progressed unevenly, good days stitched between difficult ones. Alexandra heard about it indirectly, through short updates from her mother or second-hand remarks from extended family. She responded when she felt able and stayed silent when she didn't. There was no rulebook guiding her choices, only a steady internal compass she had learned to trust.
At work, she thrived.
Creative direction suited her in ways she hadn't anticipated. She was decisive without being harsh, demanding without being cruel. Younger designers sought her out, not just for feedback, but reassurance. She recognized herself in them. The hunger to prove worth, the fear of being invisible.
She made a point of noticing people. It mattered to her now. Evenings were quieter. She cooked more.
She slept better. Her body, once a battlefield, began to feel like a place she could inhabit without fear.
She no longer woke up bracing for bad news.
Life didn't feel fragile anymore.
It felt deliberate.
Daniel entered her life without urgency. They met through mutual friends, shared coffee before they shared anything else. He asked thoughtful questions and waited for answers. When Alexandra told him about her illness, her family, the distance she kept, he didn't rush to fill the silence.
That makes sense, he said. The simplicity of it startled her. With Daniel, she learned what consistency felt like. No grand gestures. No pressure. Just presence. Jordan noticed the change first.
You look lighter, she said one Thursday, smiling across the table.
Alexandra laughed.
I think I finally stopped carrying what wasn't mine.
That winter, she received another letter from her father. This one was shorter, shakier. He wrote about regret without asking for forgiveness. He acknowledged the daughter he hadn't protected.
Alexandra read it once, folded it, and placed it in a drawer beside the first.
She didn't respond.
Not because she was cruel, but because she was honest. Some conversations didn't need replies to be complete.
Spring arrived gently.
Alexandra's hair had grown back enough to catch the light again. She walked more, took longer routes home, let the city remind her she was part of it. Her mother called occasionally, no longer asking for help, only sharing updates. There was restraint in her voice now, an understanding that hadn't existed before. Alexandra appreciated that more than apologies. One afternoon, Jordan asked her if she regretted not going back. Alexandra considered the question carefully.
No, she said. I grieve what I didn't have.
But I don't miss who I was when I kept begging for it. She understood now that boundaries weren't walls, they were doors she controlled.
She hadn't punished her family. She had simply stopped rescuing them. That distinction mattered. Her life felt full, not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. A year later, Alexandra remained cancer-free. Dr. Patterson used the word thriving during a routine scan review, and this time, Alexandra believed it. She celebrated quietly, dinner with Daniel, laughter with Jordan, a long walk along the river afterward. She no longer felt the need to mark survival loudly. Living was enough. Her family existed at a distance now, softened by time but still defined by limits. Evan adapted. Margaret learned. Thomas declined slowly, surrounded by the consequences of his own choices. Alexandra did not monitor any of it closely. She trusted that people were capable of growth, even if she wasn't required to witness it. She had learned the cost of proximity without care. She would not pay it again. On a quiet Thursday evening, Alexandra sat by her window watching the city lights flicker on. Her phone rested beside her, silent. She thought briefly of the woman she had been at 28, terrified, alone, waiting for someone to save her. She wished she could tell her something simple. You're stronger than this moment. Alexandra smiled softly, not in triumph, but acceptance. She hadn't won against her family. She hadn't lost either. She had chosen herself. And that choice, repeated over time, had given her a life that felt real. One she could stand inside without shrinking. One she intended to keep. The last real update came through a voicemail from her mother one afternoon in late summer. Thomas's condition had worsened. His hands shook constantly now, his balance unreliable, his frustration sharper than ever. Alexandra listened once, then deleted the message. Not out of anger, but because she understood what it was meant to do, pull her back into a role she had already outgrown. She had spent years confusing endurance with love. Now she knew better. Love did not demand self-erasure. She walked home that evening through streets warm with leftover sunlight, stopping to buy bread from a corner bakery, exchanging small talk with a stranger who smiled at her like she belonged in the world. And she did. That mattered more than obligation ever had. Daniel met her at her place that night. They cooked together, moving easily in the kitchen, passing plates, sharing quiet jokes. At one point, he asked, gently, "Do you ever wonder if you'll regret not going back?" Alexandra considered it honestly. "I think regret comes from betraying yourself," she said. "Not from protecting yourself." Daniel nodded, accepting the answer without debate. That was how she knew she was safe with him. No one in her family had ever accepted her truth without trying to revise it. She had stopped needing that approval. She had found something steadier instead. Autumn arrived, and with it, a sense of closure Alexandra hadn't expected. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. Just peace. She donated old clothes that no longer felt like hers, rearranged her living space, planted something new on her windowsill. Growth, she learned, didn't always announce itself. Sometimes it simply replaced what had died. On the anniversary of her final chemotherapy session, she didn't mark the day publicly. She took a long walk by the river, breathing deeply, feeling the strength in her legs, the steadiness in her chest. She was alive. Fully. That was enough. The folder on her phone still existed, untouched for months. Not as a weapon. Not as a wound. As a reminder of truth. Alexandra understood now that memory could be both heavy and freeing. She didn't need to revisit it to stay grounded. She trusted herself. Trusted the woman she had become through pain, through abandonment, through survival. She had learned to recognize love by its actions, not its titles. She had learned that family could be chosen, and that walking away could be an act of care, not cruelty. On another Thursday evening, Alexandra sat at her favorite cafe near the window, waiting for Jordan to arrive. The city moved outside, people laughing, arguing, living. She felt part of it in a way she never had before. 2 years earlier, her life had been defined by what others refused to give her. Now it was defined by what she refused to give up, her health, her dignity, her peace. She took a sip of coffee, steady and warm, and smiled. The story did not end with reconciliation or punishment. It ended with clarity. Alexandra Whitmore survived cancer. She survived abandonment. And she built a life where she no longer had to beg to be loved. That was the ending she chose. Thank you for watching until the end. Alexandra didn't choose distance out of anger. She chose it out of clarity. Out of self-respect. Not every story ends with apologies that fix everything. Some end with boundaries that saves you. If this resonated with you, You're not broken for feeling that way.
And if you've ever had to walk away to protect your peace, you're not heartless. You're human.
Take care of yourself.
And remember, the people who truly matter will never make you beg to be loved. If this story meant something to you, kindly consider subscribing.
I'll see you in the next story.